Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. Our memory is a good thing. You know, I'm 52, and so most of my friends from growing up, most of my new friends since I've been an adult, tend to be around my age. Many of them are even a bit older. And one of the topics of conversation that goes around a lot is, oh my God, am I losing my mind? And whether it's sort of age-related, everybody worried about early onset Alzheimer's or dementia or menopausal brain melt or whatever it may be, this is a conversation that tends to happen a lot of, oh my God, where did my memory go? And I mention this because being able to remember things is actually a sign of health. So I don't think the goal is to forget our past, but simply to unhook the emotional charge behind some of the things that have happened. The memories themselves, in many ways, build the lessons that we have for today. You don't want to live in the past. Our meditative practices, our spiritual practices are all about be in the present moment. When we meditate, our mind goes either to the past or the future. We bring it back to the present. The techniques around working healthily with your mind are all about staying out of the past, out of the future, staying in the present, in the moment. But that doesn't mean that we forget the past or that we don't plan for the future. That which we learned in the past, that we've experienced in the past, it forms the lessons we have now. If you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or get some water and you stumble over a chair or a table, let's say, in your living room or in your bedroom, well, the fact that you can remember that the next morning is really good because it's going to inspire you to move that chair out of the way so that you don't stumble over it again the next night. If you do business with a friend who ends up not holding up their end of the deal and stealing a whole bunch of money and lying to you and betraying you, it's actually a good thing to be able to remember that when that friend comes back to you again and says, hey, I have an idea for a business. Let's do it together. It's good for you that you can remember that this person is the one who cheated you, stole your money, ruined 10 years of your life. Learning from our past is how we grow. The experiences we've had form in many ways the subconsciousness of us, the autopilot of us, the habits of us. So if you're ever wondering, God, why am I like that? Why do I get upset about this? Why do I worry about that? Why do I always react in this way? If you go back into your past, chances are you're going to find the reasons for that. So don't forget the past. Don't try to push memory out. Because actually all that does is burn it straight into your mind. The more you try not to think about something, the more you think about it. So if I say, close your eyes right now, think about anything except elephants. Whatever you do, just don't think about elephants, okay? Anything but elephants. Just no elephants. Like, get elephants out of your mind, okay? All right, open your eyes. What did you think about? Anybody think about elephants? Right? Now, why? Because you're spending all of your time and energy on elephants. The fact that you've put not in front of it, or no in front of it, or get out, doesn't change the fact that what's in your mind, elephants. In the same way, if you are trying to push your past away, forget the past, what is burning in your mind? Your past. If I'm trying to forget how someone hurt me, I'm spending all of this brain energy saying, I'm not going to remember how they stole all that money. I'm not going to remember how they hurt me. I'm pushing out how they hurt me. But what's in your mind? They hurt me. Instead, all we need to do is unhook the emotional charge to it. Okay. They stole the money, they ruined the business, they lied, they cheated. Can I remember that factually without losing myself in anger or pain or resentment? That's the key. It's not forget what happened. It's free yourself from the emotional baggage of it. And the way that that happens is we let go and we forgive. We let it go. We let it go into Mother Ganga. We let it go into the fire ceremony. We let it go into the universe. And we let it go with one prayer. Oh God, whatever they did, whatever may have happened, help me be free. That's all it is. It's just about your freedom. Help me no longer be stuck in that. Because anger makes us stuck. Grudges make us stuck. Resentment makes us stuck. Pain makes us stuck. Guilt makes us stuck. So whether it's what someone else did or what you did, we're stuck with all of it. And so we let it go. Whatever happened, it happened, okay. I forgive. I forgive you for your ignorance. I forgive myself for my own ignorance. We forgive. And we let it go. And that's the way to unhook the emotional baggage from your past. So don't worry about trying to push it out. But if there's a charge, it means there's some forgiving that needs to happen. So you're in the perfect place. Stand on the banks of Ganga and offer the anger, offer the pain, offer the resentment, offer the guilt to Ganga. The memory will still be there, but the charge will not be. And then you will be free. And that's the ultimate goal. The goal is not thou shalt be memoryless. The goal is thou shalt be free.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
To get inside
each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes.
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me.
So anger is best prevented rather than trying to be conquered when it's there. But we'll deal with both of them separately. So once anger is already there, how do you deal with it? The moment you recognize it's there, just stop. You might be in the middle of yelling. Just stop. The moment that you realize, oh my God, I've lost myself in anger, just stop. When I was a kid, I imagine the same is true for many of you. When I was a kid, they used to play this game where they would put on music and we would dance or move or whatever. And whenever the music stopped, you had to just immediately freeze in place. Like whatever position you were in, you had to just freeze. And it was fun because everyone was always in kind of funny, wacky positions because they'd been dancing. The moment the music stopped, you froze. And then they would turn it on again and you'd dance and then it would freeze. And you've got to be able to do the exact same thing with anger. The minute the brain registers, oh my God, I'm angry. I'm acting in anger, not just, oh my God, there's an experience of it in me, but I'm acting in anger. Just freeze. You may be worried that the person in front of you is going to think you're very silly, that you're going to somehow lose your footing with them if you admit that you've lost yourself in anger. But don't worry. I guarantee it, they will have much more respect for you if you stop in the middle of a tirade than if you keep doing it. Nobody respects anybody who loses themselves in anger. We may think, many bariya chistra se dikhaya usko. I showed them. But actually all that other person is thinking is, my God, what a fool they made of themselves. What in God, what a fit they had. They came out of their clothes. You know? Nobody says, wow, what a great guy. I really respect him for how much he yelled at me. So I promise you, stopping in the middle of it, even though it may feel foolish to you, actually is going to make the other person respect you a lot more. Just stop. Walk away from the situation. Whatever it is, just walk away mid-sentence. Get yourself alone. And just anchor in your breath. Deep breaths, long breaths. Have a glass of water. Slow everything down. And just allow yourself to be. The breath is your best ally here, because the slower and the deeper your breath is, you cannot simultaneously be furious while your breath is slow and deep. And the moment you come into real consciousness, the anger dissipates. But that's hard. Most of us only realize how angry we were afterwards. We say, oh my God, I can't believe what I said or did. I shouldn't have been so hard. And then we find ourselves going back and apologizing. Oh, that wasn't me. You know, it's like they used to do those your brain on drugs commercials. Right now we need your speech on anger commercials. Like this is what your speech looks like on anger. We say, that wasn't me. See, it was just my speech on anger. But it was you. It just was you overtaken by unconsciousness. Because anger arises in unconsciousness. Which means the best way to prevent it is to stay conscious. You will notice anger starting to well up in you. You'll notice it from far away. Just someone says something, they do something, and you just start to notice. The heart rate starts going up, the palms start to feel a little sweaty. Just come back. It's okay. It's okay. It's not worth it. Choose peace. Choose peace in every moment. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't get angry about things that we should get angry about. Inequality should make us angry. Violence should make us angry. Global hunger should make us angry. Climate change should make us angry. But that's not the sort of anger that arises in unconsciousness. It's not the sort of anger that makes us scream and yell and punch holes through walls or ruin relationships or drown our sorrows in alcohol or drugs or food. We don't do things that we later regret when we are in what I call righteous anger. That's the anger that serves as a catalyst. That's the anger that actually leads us to build schools, form NGOs, do something to right a wrong situation to whatever extent we have the capacity. But the type of anger that steals our control is unconscious. So just stay conscious and recognize you not being angry doesn't mean what the other person did was okay. It just means that you're not a slave. It means that you're not a slave to what someone else says or does. They may have been mean, obnoxious, rude, totally uncalled for. And you can still be calm. And you can still be peaceful. Because you are not a slave. Use that free will to choose peace. Because anger kills you. Literally, chemically, biochemically. The chemistry that anger dumps into your body is toxic. They always say anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other guy to die. So just refuse to drink that poison. Refuse to be a slave to someone else's ignorance or arrogance or ego or confusion or their anger. Other people can be in the midst of whatever karmic drama they're in. But you've got responsibility just for your own. So just refuse to be a slave to what they've done or said. Choose that love. Choose peace every minute, every moment.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with Inspiration and Transformation.
How do we explain inequality? Why was she born in a country far from war with the ability to have lots of food on her plate and all of these benefits that so many of us have had? Why this inequality? So, the law of karma is the way that we explain this. But it's really important to realize that it is not a law of rewards and punishments. It is not about good and bad. It is not saying, oh, you're poor in this life, it means you were bad in some past life, therefore you are being punished. All it is saying is, with the sum total of your past actions and their karmic ripples in the universe, their karmic points in your karmic bank account, these are the experiences that you need to walk through in order to get closer to God, in order to complete your karmic journey. We superimpose, a lot of those of us, especially from the West, we superimpose this kind of Santa Claus idea on the law of karma as though it's sort of, Santa knows if you've been good or bad, and if you've been good, you get all your presents, and if you've been bad, then you don't. It's not that. It's not about good or bad or rewards or punishments. It's simply a law of nature that, number one, says when you plant an apple seed, you get an apple tree. Not because you're good or bad, but simply because that is the seed you have planted. And sometimes that tree sprouts immediately, so you have immediate karmic fruits. Sometimes that tree sprouts many, many years from now. You have long-term karmic fruits. Sometimes that tree sprouts in a future lifetime. But whatever fruit you have today, you can be sure that you planted a seed for it in the past. But that law of nature is also founded upon the ultimate truth of our birth, which is the end point, the goal of this whole karmic cycle of birth and death and rebirth and birth and death, is that ultimately that karmic bank account becomes clear. And that's when we merge into the divine, when the metaphoric drop merges with the metaphoric ocean. That no matter what we do is accruing karma, some of it sweet, some of it bitter. what you could call your karmic plus points and minus points. But unlike a regular bank account, they don't cancel each other out. So the good deeds you do, the apple seeds you plant are going to come back as apples. You've got to be here on earth to eat those apples, metaphorically. The not so good actions you do, the seeds that you plant of harm or pain or violence, are going to come back in that type of fruit, and you've got to be here to go through that. Both. The pleasant, the not so pleasant. And that ultimately the whole point of our cycles is to stop accruing this karmic fruit through total surrender to the divine. Through recognizing that we are not the doer, we are just an instrument in the divine's hands. And when we totally surrender everything, that's when we stop accruing the fruit of it. There's a line in the Bhagavad Gita that says, Yat karoshi yadashnasi, yajjahoshi dadasyat, yat tapasya sekonteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. And it means, whatever you do, just offer it to me. Everything you do. Every action, everything you say, everything you eat, everything you perform, everything you speak, whatever you do, just offer it to me. Stop thinking of yourself as the doer. Recognize you are an instrument in the hands of the divine. You are a channel through which the divine flow is flowing. And just offer whatever you do to the divine. So, that is ultimately how we would stop accruing this karma and merge in. But I digressed for a moment. The inequality arises because of these karmic cycles. There are people for whom, due to their karmic past, their next step is to be taken in the environment, in the situation of struggle or of lack or of violence or whatever it may be, in order for them to get closer to God, in order for them to wipe clean their karmic bank account. And for others, their next steps are most conducive to be taken in situations with plenty. But here's what's interesting. That doesn't mean that either of them exists in a vacuum. We are all intricately linked and intertwined. So for example, let us say there is a child starving on the street, begging for food. Well, okay, so maybe the reason that she's in that condition is because of her karmic past. Okay, but I have walked by her. When I see her, compassion flows in me. Maybe tears pour out of my eyes. Or maybe, going back to Tiffany's earlier question, maybe I try to ignore her and shut myself off. And I later suffer the consequences of having ignored her and turned off my compassion because it was too painful. But in either case, her sitting there is an important catalyst for me to learn an important lesson. Now she and I are locked. And in the first case, as my compassion flows, maybe instead of just giving her an apple or 10 rupees, I decide that we need to open up a school for poor kids so that they actually have a place to go to school instead of begging on the road. Now, her having been born in that situation served as a catalyst for hundreds of children who otherwise might not have had a school had I not had that reaction to seeing her. So you start to see how everything is interlinked and interlocked. Inequality exists today, yes, because of our karmic past, but it also exists today to ignite, to catalyze our karmic present and future. We cannot excuse it, accept it, tolerate it, simply because we can explain it and understand it by the karmic past. Karma is not only of the past, it is of the present and the future. And so we must understand it also as that which is there today to catalyze us to think differently, to live differently, to decide differently, to create together a different future. If the inequality were not so dire, if it were not so severe, if those who were discriminated against were not suffering so much, their voices would not be so loud. If their voices were not so loud, we might not hear them. And if we didn't hear them, we might not act. And so it all intersects together. Do not think that just because you were born somewhere without war, or that you were born somewhere with plenty of food and the opportunity that we all have is because we were somehow born exempt from engaging in the drama of this karmic journey. It's just that's the role we play. We play the role as someone who, uninjured by the war, of someone who not needing to live in survival mode, not needing to simply worry about whether they're going to be blown up today, is actually able to have the mental stillness and spaciousness to work for peace, to work to bring more love and understanding in our world. Even if it's not necessarily to those who are suffering, because we may not have the capacity, the influence, the impact to actually be able to do something there, but we can do it in our world. Because it's brewing everywhere. It happens to have exploded as the volcano of the Middle East at the moment. But it's brewing in pockets everywhere. There are volcanoes that haven't yet erupted all over this planet. And that's why we need to be instruments bringing that peace and love. And when we look at the violence and it rips our heart out, it inspires us to serve. It inspires us to act in whatever way we can, to be those instruments of peace. And circling back to that digression I had taken into the Bhagavad Gita and the teaching, as we act, we remember that it's not about us. It's not, oh, me, the great peace builder, or oh, me, the great humanitarian. It's just about us, each of us, being an instrument in God's hands, being the channel through which divine flows in a certain way, in a certain time. And just anchoring in that as much as we possibly can. And anchoring in gratitude that we are not suffering in that way. And just asking the universe over and over again, how can I serve? How can I serve? How can I serve? And keeping our eyes and our hearts open to those messages.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit rain.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation.
What are the consequences of turning ourselves off? So today being World Vegan Day, I had spoken in the Arati about not drinking milk. Unless, of course, you're living in a traditional situation where you've got a cow in your house and the cow is treated like a member of your family and cared for and loved, and you would never dream of killing the cow just because it no longer gives milk. And unless you're living in that environment as very, very traditional Indian families did, milk is violence. And so she said, well, what if I hear that and I know that, but I like drinking milk? And so when I go to buy milk, I have to turn off that information about how harmful it is. What are the repercussions, the consequences to ourself when we have to turn off? I don't know of any scientific study on that could say, well, when you turn off, here is what happens to your immune system response, or here's what happens to your likelihood to be depressed or anxious. But my instinct is, from just the way it feels inside and what I know about human psychology, is that we are severely harming ourselves. Any way in which we restrict our consciousness, restrict our awareness, restrict our ability to be human, we're harming ourselves. If not physically, it may not have an impact on your immune system necessarily, the act of doing it. The milk will, but the act of shutting yourself off may not. But it's certainly going to have an impact on your emotional well-being, on your spiritual well-being. On a spiritual level, it's simple. We're living non-truth. If you look at the foundation of yoga, so Patanjali, the sage Patanjali, the founder of Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, gave us these 8 limbs. Well, asana is limb number 3. Limb number 1 and 2, the very foundation of yoga, are what are called yam and niyam. Or in the West, I've heard them called the yamas and the niyamas. They're essentially the 10 commandments of living a yogic life. It's not about religion. It's not about culture, it's not about language. It's simply about living what we would call a dharmic life, a righteous life, a life of integrity, a yogic life. I won't go into all of them, or that would take our whole time, but the first one is ahimsa, or nonviolence. The second one is satya, truthfulness. So if I know that milk is wrong and violent, but I shut that off so I can drink it anyway, I've just violated 1 and 2, the very core premise, the very foundation of a practice of yoga. So it doesn't matter how long I can stand on my head. If I violated the very core foundation, then it becomes what we would call acrobatics or calisthenics or 100 other things, but not yoga. It's only yoga if it's founded upon yama niyam. So the spiritual answer is easy. You've essentially shot yourself in the spiritual foot. You've handicapped your ability to rise spiritually if you are quite purposefully living in untruth, and especially untruth that allows violence to happen through you. It's the same things, by the way, that we told ourselves in America when slavery was legal. Oh, black people don't feel pain. I mean, if you read the stuff, the propaganda that was used to continue for slaves to be legal, your jaw would hit the ground today. You wouldn't know whether to laugh at the absolute absurdity or to just sob at the inhumanity. I mean, literally things like, they don't feel pain. But we come up with all kinds of rationale to do what we want to do. But when you are living a life in which your choices require you to tell such violent untruths about people of a different color, people of a different race, people of a different religion, people of a different sexual orientation, different species. If we need to tell ourselves lies about who feels what, oh, I know they don't feel. Well, of course they feel. Pick up any science textbook. They've got nervous systems. Of course they feel. But we tell ourselves these unequivocal untruths, undeniable untruths, just to enable us to continue to live the way we want to live. It's like buying things that are being produced in sweatshops. Nobody wants to hear about it. But that doesn't change the fact that our consumer clamoring for more and more and more, cheaper, 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 isn't keeping women and children in third world countries working in sweatshops. But we don't want to think about that. So we go out and we shop till we drop, feeling very good about all the sales and the bargains we got. Really deliberately not thinking about where that may have come from, what sort of corners had to be cut by the producers in order to sell it to me so cheaply. I mean, think about fast food restaurants. I don't know the prices in India because even though I've lived here almost 30 years, I've never eaten out. But in America, you can walk into a place like McDonald's or Burger King or whatever it is, and at least when I was growing up, you could get a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a Big Mac for, 69 cents. And it would cost you several dollars to buy the salad there. Would cost you $15, $20 to walk into the restaurant next door and get a plate of pasta instead. But we don't ask ourselves, how is it that this meat is so cheap? How is it possible that this is only 69 cents when a plate of pasta is $15? we allow ourselves not to think so that we can keep living the way that we want to live. 69 cents, great. And we don't think about the ramifications. So spiritually, it's obvious how detrimental that is to live in that kind of illusion and falseness. On an emotional level, I also think it's really detrimental because even if you're not on a spiritual path, we all want our heart to be open. If our heart is closed, we cannot love. We cannot receive love. We cannot live in joy and ecstasy and peace. I mean, if our hearts are closed, we are lonely and miserable. But if I need to push away the truth of the world in order to live how I want to live, I've got to close my heart. Whether to the women and children in the sweatshops, whether to the cows and how they're being treated. And so I'm shutting down my heart. I'm also doing one other thing, which is spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, very, very damaging. Which is, I'm teaching myself that I am the type of person who is prepared to overlook untruth when it suits me. I'm giving myself a very detrimental message, which is, if it suits me, I can look the other way. And what that means is my entire self-identity shifts into, I'm one of those types of people. I may like it, I may not like it, I may be proud of it, I may not be proud of it, but either way, I know what I've done. Consciously or subconsciously, my inner knowing knows exactly the truth I have pushed away. Which means when I think about myself now, I'm not a warrior for truth, a warrior for love, someone who embodies that. I'm now someone who, if it suits me, I can look the other way. And that is not the type of self-identity that you want to have, because that becomes what we call a slippery slope. And then you start to discover that you can look the other way for other things because, hey, I'm the type of person who looks the other way. And for anyone on a path of spirituality, we've got to be committed to truth at all costs. At least with ourselves. With others, Bhagavan Krishna tells us in the Gita that right speech, what he calls tapas of speech, is that which is true, but also kind and beneficial. So when you're telling something to someone else, you have to also ask yourself, well, it may be true, but is it also kind and beneficial? And if not, we don't speak it. But in terms of ourselves, it has to be truth at all cost. Truth at any cost, whatever it may be. Full truth, complete truth, we like it, we don't like it. It's convenient, it's not convenient. Otherwise, how can we live? How can we live if we're lying to ourselves? So, yeah, I think the internal repercussions of consciously shutting yourself off are very, very damaging. And this is why, by the way, on the subject of vegetarianism, for me, I'm really clear that I'm not the moral police, and I'm not the value police, and I'm not the spiritual police, and I'm not here to tell anybody what decisions they should make for their own lives. But I do think that one thing is really important, which is that we live in truth. And an incredible leader and warrior and hero, really, for a movement, not only of vegetarianism and veganism, but of love and care and truth, is a man named John Robbins, who's just a hero of mine. And he had a beautiful line that I read. God, I was still a teenager. And he said, if you ever doubt whether you are meant to eat meat, because sometimes they say, humans, we need it. We're supposed to have this. We need that. He said, look, if you ever doubt, he said, don't take my word for it. He said, when you see a cow walk by on the road, do you salivate? Does your mouth produce saliva when you see a cow or a chicken clucking along the side of the road, or a pig on the side of the road? Because if you were supposed to eat it, your mouth would produce saliva at the sight of it. And he says, and if you doubt again whether you're supposed to eat it, he said, just walk up to the animal and sink your teeth into it. And just see what you're able to do with that, with the skin, with the feathers, with the whatever it may be. Does your human body have the capacity to deal with a cow, a chicken, that hasn't been killed, skinned, defeces, de-urined, de-blooded, and then cooked? And if you don't have the capacity to deal with that, then you can be pretty sure you weren't meant to deal with that. Because any animal that is a carnivore salivates at the sight of whatever it's supposed to eat. So it's another way of just testing that truth. Like if you don't believe me, if you think you're supposed to eat meat, see what happens if you sink your teeth into a cow. Or see what happens if you sink your teeth into a chicken. Like, does that feel internally like, oh yeah, this is what my body needs? If so, by all means, go for it. But if not, then in service of honest living, we need to kind of humbly admit that maybe we're not actually supposed to eat it. Because we certainly salivate if we're hungry and we see an apple hanging on the tree. We certainly salivate when we see that which we are meant to eat if we're hungry. But typically not cows or chickens or pigs or fish swimming in the ocean.
This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week, and I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time, on Om Times Radio.